Ocean Mike welcomes everybody to another Wicked Fish Wednesday. Hope everybody's having a great day. Let's see if the server pinged everybody. It was pretty finicky last time. Well, welcome to our first viewer, nonetheless. I guess I'll just ping everybody. There it is, double ping. All right, well, sorry for the double ping. I do have two things planned for today. Hey, Lucid Boar. Hey, Puck. Level up. Welcome, everybody. I have a couple things planned for today, and then we'll take questions or any suggestions that you guys might have in the remaining minutes. So we have 4 folks so far, so welcome everybody. Hope everybody's having a swell day. I suppose we will get started at the 3-minute mark, so in about 40 seconds or so. Might give it a little bit longer. So yes, let's just wait for a couple more folks to filter on in. We're at the 3-minute mark. We'll give it another 30 seconds just to see if anybody else wants to show up. Don't want to start without folks. Sometimes the live aspect is where the fun's at. All right. So let's talk about the first thing that I've planned today. I have not yet. I don't know if my computer's capable of running that. It can barely run anything. Teriyaki salmon udon. Now that sounds very good. I am well though. Just sitting here enjoying the evening. Hope everybody else is too. So the first thing we're going to be talking about today is not a prehistoric fish, but a folklore fish, which is also something that I do go over on Wicked Fish Wednesdays. So what we're going to be going over is a little bit more vague, cryptid type creature that originates from the Caribbean, and it's supposedly in the Caribbean area. It's a local folklore type thing, and folks who live around there occasionally do believe it. It's like a Bigfoot type thing. It's called the Lusca, though. Lusca. It is supposed to look like a giant shark octopus. Front half of a shark, bottom half of an octopus. Kind of think of like one of those emperor leviathans from Subnautica, if any of you are familiar with that. So it is supposedly like between 23 meters long and 70 meters long, which is 70 meters is significantly larger than a blue whale, and there are no sort of cephalopods that are even half that long or large. So it's an interesting concept, but Yes, because the scientific aspect doesn't really fit in very well there because cephalopod type creatures would have to balance their feet on the ocean floor to be able to hunt. And doing so would indicate that it has to be somewhat shallow water. And so kind of says maybe it's not too true. But it's still out there. The Luska idea is out there. And the other thing I have planned today is I will be doing another SCP reading, SCP-3700. It's another aquatic one. So here we go. SCP item number SCP-3700. Object class Highmall. I do not know what that means, but yeah, I know that there's safe, Euclid, which is kind of like safe unless provoked, and Keter, which is dangerous. I don't know what this means though. If anybody wants to let me know, by all means. So here we are, Special Containment Procedures. Foundation Naval Task Force Delta 7, Northern Storm, is currently assigned to patrol an area 800 kilometers in diameter encompassing the Orkney, Shetland, and Faroe archipelagos in the North Sea. Two refurbished battleships purchased from the United States military have been assigned to task the force. 13 destroyers, 5 cruisers, and 15 smaller support craft are to accompany these vessels. Delta 7 has been instructed to patrol in a spiral pattern, moving outwards from a central predetermined location known as the origin. This pattern is to be maintained until Delta 7 either encounters SCP 3700 1 or reaches the edge of the designated 800-kilometer zone, wherein they will return to the origin and begin the process again. Information regarding SCP-3700's actual depth is to be retracted from all public texts and scientific publications. Should SCP-3701 be encountered, Delta 7 is to accompany the entity until it encounters SCP-3702, or it demanifests. SCP-3701 has been implanted with 32 large-scale Donovan holoprojectors, which give the entity the appearance of a pod of humpback whales. Delta 7 is authorized to dissuade SCP 3701 from directly approaching any of the archipelagos via force if necessary. Inquiry into Delta 7's presence is to be explained via maritime exercises between the international peacekeeping forces. High-ranking elements of the British Royal Navy have been informed of Delta 7's presence and purpose. Should SCP-3701 encourage SCP-3702 at any point, Delta 7 is authorized to engage Protocol Winter Maelstrom. Upon encountering SCP-3702 in the presence of SCP-3701, Delta 7 is to take the following actions. Destroyers are to deploy harpoon-based anchors into SCP-3702's skin on its head, securing it in one location. Destroyers are to move in the circular pattern at a distance of 200 meters and engage the entity with both L cannons and standard armaments, with anchors at full taut to ensure the entity cannot orient properly in any one direction. Cruisers are to draw SCP-3702's attention away from both destroyers and battleships via use of Class 3L cannons and standard armaments. Cruisers should engage in a circular serpentine pattern at 300 meters. Battleships are to employ Class 4L cannons and systematic continuous barrages at 180 degrees on either sides of the entity, 400 meters away. Both vessels should coordinate as to launch each barrage at the same time as their counterparts. All vessels shall follow this protocol until either entity subdues the other. As conventional weaponry and L cannons are only capable of doing limited damage to SCP-3702, Delta 7 should not engage it in the absence of the other entity. Should SCP-3701 prove unable to subdue SCP-3702 or SCP-3701 encounter SCP-3702 before Delta 7 encounters the entity, Protocol Tumult will be put in place. Protocol Tumult. The following procedures are to be enacted upon failure to properly contain SCP-3702. Evacuation of naval and civilian craft from the 800-kilometer area of effect. Routing of trade and ferry routes to the archipelagos for a period of no less than 6 months. Continuous aerial and naval reconnaissance of and engagement with SCP-3702. Increased monitoring of SCP-3456 activity due to SCP-3702's regurgitation of instances and a result of changing hazardous weather patterns. Continued surveillance for the reappearance of SCP-3701. Activation of land-based aquatic defenses. Due to SCP-3701's degrading physical condition, inquiries into the potential damage caused by allowing SCP-3702 to subdue SCP-3701 twice every 5 years is ongoing. Cooperative requests to local GOC forces are pending via review of GOC demands. I do not believe cephalopods are capable of using harpoon guns, not in an effective manner at least. So here we have our description of what SCP-3700 is. SCP-3700 is the designation for a circular area in the Northern Sea with a diameter of 800 kilometers encompassing the archipelago, Faroe, Orkney, and Shetland. SCP-3000 has an abnormal depth, the seafloor located approximately 5 kilometers below the ocean surface, compared to an average 250 to 300 meters for the rest of the North Sea. SCP-3700 is subject to a wide and varied array of anomalous occurrences due to ritualistic interactions between two entities which have been designated as SCP-3701 and SCP-3702. Active effects of SCP-3700 are wholly dependent on which entity successfully subdues the other during each ritual. All rituals, with the exception of 2 consistent dates, take place at random periods of time. SCP-3701 and SCP-3702 always interact on dates corresponding with the spring and fall equinox of the given year. Let's see what information -1 is. Okay. SCP-3701 is an arthropod, 6 kilometers in length, green in pigmentation with a mixture of blue, yellow, pink, and red markings etched along the top, forming a facsimile of a woman's face. It possesses 6 prehensible limbs attached to an elongated crescent-shaped segment of its abdomen on the interior end, with 8 legs attached to a cylindrical segment stretching roughly 4 kilometers in length. The entity possesses 4 compound eyes, orange in pigment, attached to stalks at the front of the crescent. SCP-3701's carapace is heavily damaged with large amounts of scarring, cracking, and small holes which expose softer tissues. Other than its size, the entity possesses several anomalous capabilities, a number of which are used to subdue SCP-3702. SCP-3701 is capable of using its club-like appendages in a similar manner to a peacock mantis shrimp, which is like punching, basically, where both the strike and the resulting cavitation bubbles produce a force in excess of similar tons of dynamite. 2 of SCP-3701's eyes are capable of projecting concentrated blasts of gamma radiation. The entity is capable of dispelling/dispersing storms and other aberrant weather phenomena, while simultaneously increasing rates of erosion on any landmass it comes within 100 meters of. Despite its size, SCP-3701 is capable of reaching speeds in excess of 100 kilometers an hour. It has been demonstrated an ability to demanifest entirely if it is unable to locate SCP-3702 within a certain time frame. SCP-3701 is benign in nature and displays rudimentary signs of sapience. When accompanied by Delta 7, it will either ignore the presence of Foundation vessels or provide some primitive form of aid via propelling disbanded craft away from peril. The entity travels the length of the 800-kilometer area in which it manifests in a spiral pattern, moving out from a central location towards the edges. Since its discovery and the subsequent implementation of containment protocols, the entity has slowed considerably in its movements, suffered several notable decreases in mass, and has weakened considerably in its ability to subdue SCP-3702. Now, what is SCP-3702 like? SCP-3702 is an anomalous member of the Actinopterygidae, which closely resembles Eurypharynx pelicanoides in appearance, which is basically like a pelican eel. With the exception of 13 appendages encircling the middle section of its body, these appendages resemble the tentacles of an octopus with accompanying suckers and tuck into the entity's torso when not in use. The entity is currently 32 kilometers in length, with the majority of its length being composed of a whip-like tail ending in a sharpened point, with the widest point on the entity being approximately 1 kilometer from top to bottom. Each tentacle is estimated to be approximately 60 meters in length, and its mouth is estimated to reach 3 kilometers in depth when opened. SCP-3702 is black in pigmentation and is bioluminescent, with white, purple, and red luminescent lines forming the facet smile of a man's face on either side of its torso. That's interesting. SCP-3702 is capable of invoking rapid changes in meteorological conditions, specifically invoking storm conditions in excess of Category 5 hurricanes. The entity is capable of bending its torso between the tail in the semblance of a joint where there is visibly not one, then spinning the lower portion of its body when its head remains oriented in a single direction. This allows SCP-3702 to generate a whirlpool maelstrom, drawing any vessels within 150 meters towards it, at which point its tentacles will grip and rip said objects apart, regardless of composition. The entity is capable of releasing high-energy sound waves and streams of blue fire from its esophagus, allowing it to quickly dispatch close-range targets. It manifests at random locations along its counterpart's spiral path, with the exception of the aforementioned equinoxes where it appears at the origin. It remains submerged unless it is engaged with another object or organism, or SCP-3701. It will demanifest 15 days after first appearing. The entity is openly hostile to any and all organisms that approach it. However, it reverts to rote predatory behavior in all instances other than interactions with SCP-3701. The entity cannot be subdued via conventional weaponry and only suffers moderate damage from anomalous weaponry. Thus, only SCP-3701 is capable of fully subduing it. Several of SCP-3702's more notable anomalous properties, including its ability to regurgitate SCP-3456 instances, have emerged in the latest decade as its counterparts has grown weaker. Interactions between these two consist of prolonged struggle, where each entity will attempt to temporarily kill or subdue the other. Interactions on equinox dates always occur at the center of the 800-kilometer zone. Interactions shortly following the given equinox dates are usually short and can occur in random locations, with the victor of the previous interaction quickly dispatching the other entity. Historically, the previously subdued party has defeated its counterpart during the next equinox prior to its implementation of current protocols. This resulted in 2 6-month cycles where SCP-3701 would dominate one cycle and SCP-3702 the other. Since implementation of current containment procedures, SCP-3701 has subdued SCP-3702 for 64 straight equinoxes with Foundation aid. Successful defeat of one entity by the other includes a number of different geological and meteorological changes within the 800-kilometer zone. These are described as below. When SCP-3701 subdues SCP-3702, storms and harsh weather are immediately dispelled. Reproductive rates of local oceanic and island fauna increase by a factor of 3, and crop yields double for the duration of the 6-month period. Carefully culling of ocean fauna must be undertaken due to the unintended creation of dead zones as a result of overpopulation of certain species of zooplankton. And when SCP-3702 subdues SCP-3701, storms become perilous. Continuous storms ranging in strength from that of a Category 1 to Category 5 hurricane occur throughout the 800-kilometer zone. Temperatures experience rapid fluctuations ranging from well between 0 Celsius to well above 28 degrees Celsius as a result of the constantly changing storm fronts. Travel by sea is rendered difficult, if not impossible, by turbulent storm surges and waves. Supplies, food, and transport must be arranged by air or aboard specialized storm-faring vessels. Ocean food sources are driven from the area due to the extreme conditions, and livestock often expire from exposure or disease. Crop yields are greatly reduced due to high winds, oversaturated soil, and lack of sunlight. SCP-3702 is not civilian vessels capable of traversing the harsh conditions it generates. There we go. So there we have that. Oh, it's Netakrug. Hello, Netakrug. I'm not familiar with that. It did not. However, I'm going to take a guess and say that it's because they're counterparts to each other. Like one has the face of a woman on it, on its sides, due to their designs, which is supposedly the good one, as it's peaceful and tries to protect the zones. And the other one, which is like the pelican eel, or the gulper eel, more commonly known as, is the one with the man faces on the sides of its head. So my only guess is it's basically like a counterpart type thing, made to fight each other, kind of like Godzilla and Ghidorah. Are my ancestors smiling? I do not know. I certainly hope so. Hello. We just finished reading a very long SCP. It was about two giant anomalous sea monsters that fight each other on frequent in this one area. Let me remind me later, Java. Um, yes, they're pretty cool. They're giant octopus-like creatures, one being good and the other being evil. And basically, they fight each other. It's pretty cool. And I also talked about the Lusca, which is a Caribbean sea monster cryptid. It is thought to be like between 23 and 70 meters long, and it is a giant half shark, half cephalopod. Not sure how believable that is, but you know, it exists. Well, the cryptid concept exists. I'm not sure about it actually existing, though. I have seen no such thing, but I doubt it. It's actually a cephalopod. I have not heard of the abyssal zone time gates. I'll take one or two questions, as that SCP did take quite a while, or maybe I can find a shorter aquatic SCP. Let's see how long this one is. My favorite extinct land mammal? Um, that is a good question. Oh, what's it called? I used to love. I had this little model of it when I was a kid. I used to buy those little toys of like dinosaurs and stuff. Pacific Rim. I've actually not seen that, surprisingly. Let's see here. I want to try to find that land mammal. I think here it is. There it is. The Androsarchus is what it supposedly looked like. It was kind of like a tiger type thing. I think he does look quite cool. I have a little model of him upstairs somewhere from when I was little. I have. You told me that you are one. Message. No, I will not. Um, hmm. I heard about this. Lemuria, the lost city. Yes, my name is Mike. It is not Solomon. I'm Mike or Michael, whatever works. Um, but Lemuria, that is an interesting concept. I forgot about that for a little bit. It was like in the Indian Ocean that they thought was like a sunken continent. Yeah, they thought it was a sunken continent, but it was disproved in like late 1800s. Some zoologists thought it was real, but it seems to be disproved. Who knows? Maybe there's some sort of town that was sunk instead. Not a full continent, but no, I'm no king of anywhere. But I do make these videos. Yeah, it's weird conspiracy theories. Well, they weren't really conspiracy, it was more thought to be scientifically um, philosophical, but now it's more of a, oh, so you believe in Atlantis, huh? Yeah, sure, buddy. But theory existed at one point. Crazy business. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for today's episode. You had a good half an hour. Groupie. Is that a grouper joke? I was planning on VCing and painting some more, so yes, sure. We could do that in the Ocean Mike official server. Feel free to join, fellows. It is linked in older videos. All right, well, that's going to do it for tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the stream. I had a lot of fun doing that. I'll try to find shorter SCPs sometimes. I thought that one was going to be long, uh, decently long, or appropriately long, but I did not notice the drop down menus to actually describe each creature, so it took a lot longer than I thought. My apologies if that got a little bit boring for people who dropped in. However, for the future watchers, I hope that was a lot more entertaining. So, hope everybody has a great rest of your night. Like always, stay safe. Feel free to leave suggestions anytime. I will answer them to the best of my ability and cover them when I can. So, have a good rest of your night and goodbye, fishy friends.